Jason Pratchett and Kabir Kerr are branch chairman for Reform UK in North and Mid Norfolk. Jason has 10 years of experience in the energy sector, and Kabir has been passionate about energy policy since joining Reform UK 3 years ago and setting up the Mid Norfolk branch. Together, they've helped to establish a new partnership in East Anglia called SNORE, which stands for Suffolk and Norfolk Opposes Renewable Eyesores. And I'm here today to find out what it's all about. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Jason, if I may start with you, talk to me about SNORE. What is it? What's it trying to achieve?
SNORE is a minor aspect of a wider approach for UK ORE, which is a platform of bringing local communities together to oppose what we see as the large-scale energy projects in rural areas. We want to block large-scale renewable infrastructure, protect farmland, rural landscapes and food security, which is the criticality here. We are not producing as much food as we really need at present. So if we smother our land with with the desecration of our rural communities, which as we see it, then our food security will reduce. We're not producing as much food as what we did in the end of World War II. So that says a lot. So in implementing these renewable eyesores onto us and our local communities will only get worse. We also want to promote sensible, balanced energy solutions. We're not fully against solar per se, but we believe that solar could be more efficient if it was nearer the end user, as opposed to the distances the energy has to travel via all the transmission lines. But in the main, it is to bring across the local communities together as one, and as a larger conglomerate, it gives us a greater platform.
Okay, well, Kabir, let me ask you. Many people think solar farms are a good idea. I mean, why would you not think so? So why are you against them in principle?
For me, it's mainly about costs, okay? We've got these large solar farms which require vast amounts of acreage in order to provide the energy that's needed. And that's because it's just not an energy dense way of producing electricity. And all of these wind farms and solar farms have to be connected up to the grid. The cost of doing that nationally is £56 billion. The Norwich to Tilbury line alone is £7.5 billion. Once you've actually connected them up to the grid, they still need a lot of investment in battery technology, battery energy storage systems. And at the minute, those are mostly made from lithium, which is highly flammable and poses a real danger to the communities where it is installed. The other big problem that I see is that when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, you have to pay for a backup energy grid. And that means that you're actually paying for your electricity twice. All of the cost of all of these things is being loaded onto the consumer's bills, and it's one of the reasons why we have the second most expensive electricity prices in the world.
But, okay, Jason, let me turn to you and ask you a pretty key question. Every industrial society, as centuries have proven, have been built on energy. Energy is the essential ingredient to building any society that is going to develop technologically. And of course, the latest technological revolution will need to be built on a reliable energy supply. Some people then will therefore call you, it's an easy accusation to call you NIMBYs. Are you NIMBYs?
Absolutely not. We're not opposing mass industrial solar farms just because it's not in our backyard. It's bad planning. It doesn't make sense. We have Highgrove, for example, at 4,000 acres, which produces 720 megawatts, or you could have a more efficient solution near to the end user by using small modular reactors, which a small modular reactor can produce 300 megawatts at approximately 3 to 4 acres of land. So none of it makes sense. So it's not about NIMBYism. It's literally about being responsible and approaching this in a more practicable manner. Large-scale solar farms impact our farmland, wildlife habitats, and indeed local infrastructures and the character of our rural communities. So as I say, this is not NIMBYism. It literally is responsible scrutiny.
And maybe, Kabir, as a final question I'd like to ask you, in terms of just overall reforms, overall policy in regards to energy generation, as I said in my earlier question, we do need an energy supply in this nation to drive our country forward technologically. Do you think there is a balance? What is Reform's policy towards the whole energy supply? Do you think there is a balance between renewables and, for example, nuclear and fossil fuels? And what is Reform's idea on that?
So if you look at the fuel that's available to us, we do have many years of oil and gas left in this country. Our policy is to make use of that. Long term, we obviously need much more long-term solutions for when those resources run out. And therefore, our long-term solution is based around nuclear, in particular, small modular reactors. That's a new technology that's rehashing technology from nuclear submarines. But it's very cost effective because these reactors can be made and mass manufactured, which brings down the cost significantly. Now, this is going to create jobs in the UK because we've got firms like Rolls-Royce in Derbyshire who are at the cutting edge of this technology, but our government is not giving them the investment that they need. Reform UK absolutely will. And what the evidence shows is that if you are someone that really cares about CO2, the countries which are nuclear, like France and Sweden, have far lower CO2 per kilowatt hour than countries who rely on solar and wind, such as Denmark and Germany. All of that information is publicly available. Anyone can see it for themselves. If you actually care about CO2, nuclear is the solution. So that's what we're in favour of long term. In the short term, we absolutely need to make use of the oil and gas that we have. What we've seen from shutting down gas fields is that importing LNG from abroad actually creates 10 times more CO2 because of the process of freezing it into a liquid, transporting it thousands of miles, regasifying it. If we use our own gas, it's much less CO2, and gas itself is 30% less CO2 than oil and 50% less CO2 than coal. So it is a clean energy. That's how I think of it. And we have 50 years of gas at our resource.
We also have 20 billion barrels of oil left in the UK continental shelf, which is just literally beneath our feet. So not to be able to utilise that doesn't make sense. And as Kabir has highlighted, by using gas, one of the future energy sources, which is all going to be investigated, will be hydrogen. And you could use gas to produce that hydrogen by splitting the molecule. So if we use gas, that's more of an efficient manner of splitting that molecule. Now, at the moment, future plans into hydrogen is literally to import the gas, which doesn't make sense because we already have it here. But without obviously deviating too much, digressing too much from solar farms, etc., it's not close to the end user. And that is the problem where we are here. We are building these infrastructures all around East Anglia, but the transmission lines go all the way down to London, for example. So it doesn't make sense. So it's not just literally the footprint of 4,000 acres in High Grove, for example. It's all the extras that come with it, pylons, cabling, etc. So this is what we're dead against.
If I may just actually ask one final question to both of you gentlemen. This drive for net zero, that is clearly the policy of the current government and indeed the previous Conservative government. Do you think this drive for net zero has the potential to bankrupt this nation? Jason, let me start with you.
I perhaps not the nation, but perhaps households, purely because of the expenses and the subsidies that we have to pay for this. And the irony behind it, once again, when they talk about GB Energy, etc., most of the investment by subsidies go to overseas companies, EDF, Equinor, Statkraft, for example. And a lot of these are state-owned companies in Norway and Denmark. So those subsidies are literally going to those states, and then nothing's coming back in to the UK sectors. So we've got to be mindful that GB Energy will not take off. So we will make households bankrupt per GDP per capita as opposed from a national aspect.
Kabir, your thoughts?
My thoughts are that the economy and economic growth very, very much depends on the cost of energy. It is a crucial factor in the economy. As Jason says, it might not bankrupt us on its own. However, there are so many other things that we're facing right now that's causing a sovereign debt crisis. This could be the thing that tips us over the edge. It could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So it is dangerous. It's completely unplanned. There are no detailed plans on how to deliver net zero. In my view, it's an impossibility. And we shouldn't go any further with it until there is a clear plan that lowers costs as well as reducing CO2.
And if you look at the wind turbines, for example, we are subsidising Scunthorpe Steelworks nationally from the taxpayer, but we only make 2% of the steel to make our wind turbines. China makes most of our wind turbines. It makes more sense that we make our own steel for the wind turbines instead. So we're actually subsidising China for our subsidies, but we're also subsidising Scunthorpe to stay open because they haven't got the work. So it makes sense we make this steel.
A clear and powerful message, but there you have it. This government may have a supermajority in Parliament, but opposition to its energy policy is indeed growing here in East Anglia. They show themselves to be a government that does buckle to pressure from their MPs, but with Ed Miliband's power base in the party growing, who knows if he can be stopped? Only time will tell. Gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching.